San Miguel de Allende is a city and municipality located in the far eastern part of the state of Guanajuato in central Mexico. It is part of the macroregion of Bajío. It is 274 kilometers from Mexico City and 97 kilometers from the state capital of Guanajuato. Historically, the town is important as being the birthplace of Ignacio Allende, whose surname was added to the town's name in 1826, as well as the first municipality declared independent of Spanish rule by the nascent insurgent army during the Mexican War of Independence. However, the town waned during and after the war, and at the beginning of the 20th century was in danger of becoming a ghost town. Its Baroque, neoclassical colonial structures were discovered by foreign artists who moved in and began art and cultural institutes such as the Instituto Allende and the Escuela de Bellas Artes. This gave the town a reputation, attracting artists such as David Alfaro Siqueiros, who taught painting. This attracted foreign art students, especially former U.S. soldiers studying on the GI Bill after the Second World War. Since then, the town has attracted a significant amount of foreign retirees, artists, writers and tourists, which is shifting the area's economy from agriculture and industry to commerce, catering to outside visitors and residents. The main attraction of the town is its well-preserved historic center, filled with buildings from the 17th and 18th centuries. This and the nearby sanctuary of Tlatelolco have been declared World Heritage Sites in 2008. Founding of the colonial city. The city has been known by various names since the Spanish founded the settlement. It was called Izquinapan by the indigenous peoples. The Spanish originally called it San Miguel el Grande and sometimes San Miguel de los Chichimecas. San Miguel refers to the founder of the city, Father Juan de San Miguel. The name of the town was changed in 1826 to San Miguel de Allende in order to honor Ignacio Allende, who was born here. The surrounding municipality is officially called Allende. Both seat and municipality are called San Miguel. The municipality has a coat of arms that was designed by a group called the Amigos de San Miguel, but it has not been officially recognized. Before the arrival of the Spanish in the early 16th century, there had been an indigenous settlement at Izquinapan. A small chapel was built and a village started near the indigenous village by Juan de San Miguel. He decided to dedicate the Spanish town to the Archangel Michael. However, the arrival and colonization provoked the locals. The Chichimecas began attacking Spanish travelers in the area, and in 1551, the Guamere people attacked the village proper. This and continuous water supply problems caused the original location to be abandoned and moved. The village was officially re-established in 1555 by Juan de San Miguel's successor, Bernardo Cosan, and indigenous leader Fernando de Tapia. It was refounded both as a mission and as a military outpost. The new site was just northwest of the old one at a place with 2 freshwater springs and with terrain better suited for defense. The 2 springs supplied all of the town's water until the 1970s. Today, this second site is occupied by the Santa Escuela Church, which colloquially became known as the Old Parish by the 18th century. Colonial period. By the mid-16th century, silver had been discovered in Zacatecas, and a major road between this area and Mexico City passed through San Miguel. Indigenous attacks on caravans continued, and San Miguel became an important military and commercial site. To quell these attacks, as well as rebellions against Spanish rule, the viceroy in Mexico City granted lands and cattle to a number of Spanish to have them settle the area. He also gave indigenous groups limited self-rule and excused them from taxation. The location of the town would make the town a melting pot as Spanish indigenous peoples and later Criollos would exchange cultural influences. Eventually, major roads would connect the town with the mining communities in San Luis Potosi as well as Zacatecas and the rest of the state of Guanajuato. Serving travelers' needs and providing supplies to mining camps made the town rich. One particular industry was textiles. Locals claimed that the serape was invented here. By the mid-18th century, the city reached its height when most of its large mansions, palaces and religious buildings were constructed. Most still remain. The town was also home to the area's wealthy hacienda owners. At the time, it was one of the most important and prosperous settlements in New Spain, with a population reaching 30,000. In comparison, in the mid-18th century, Boston had a population of only 16,000 and New York 25,000. The town's apogee came during the transition period between Baroque and neoclassical architecture, and many of the mansions and churches have both influences. Mansions are larger than normal for a settlement of this size. Independence. The prominence of the city declined at the beginning of the 19th century, mostly due to the Mexican War of Independence. However, it played an important early role in this conflict. It is the birthplace of two significant protagonists, Ignacio Allende and Juan Aldama. Both were involved in a conspiracy against the colonial government in Mexico City, along with Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla and Josefa Ortiz de Dominguez. When this conspiracy was discovered, the warning to Hidalgo and Allende passed through this town and onto Dolores just to the north. This prompted Hidalgo's Grito de Dolores assembling the insurgent army on 15 and 16 September 1810. The new insurgent army first came to San Miguel, stopping at a religious sanctuary in Atotonilco just outside. Hidalgo took a standard bearing an image of the Virgin of Guadalupe from here to use as a symbol. This standard is now in the Museo del Ejército in Spain. Then the army entered San Miguel proper to name officers and to free prisoners in the local jail. San Miguel is considered to be the first municipality to be freed from Spanish rule. While there was no other military action in the area, economically the town waned as agriculture suffered and the population declined. This continued for most of the rest of the 19th century as the country was torn between liberal and conservative factions vying for power. After the war, the town was declared a city by the State Congress in 1826 and its name was modified to San Miguel de Allende in honor of Ignacio Allende. There was some economic recovery near the end of the 19th century during the rule of Porfirio Diaz. During this time, dams, aqueducts and railroads were built. Agriculture made a comeback with the introduction of fruit orchards. However, decline returned with the end of mining in almost all of the state of Guanajuato. Between this and the beginning of the Mexican Revolution, San Miguel almost became a ghost town. What remained would stay frozen in time, as the new Mexican government under the INAH declared San Miguel a historic and protected town in 1926, establishing guidelines and restrictions aimed at keeping its colonial appearance. 20th century to the present. In the late 1930s and early 1940s, the town began to attract artists and writers. One prominent artist and writer was Sterling Dickinson, an American, who came in 1938. In the 1940s, Dickinson established the Instituto Allende, another art and cultural school established around the same time as the Escuela de Bellas Artes. Despite the rural location, both schools would find success after the Second World War. U.S. veterans studying under the G. Bill were permitted to study abroad, and these schools took advantage, attracting former soldiers as students. Enrollment at the schools rose, and this began the town's cultural reputation. This attracted more artists and writers, including José Chávez Morado and David Alfaro Siqueiros, who taught painting at the Escuela de Bellas Artes. This, in turn, spurred the opening of hotels, shops and restaurants to cater to the new visitors and residents. Many of the American veterans who came to study in San Miguel would later come back to retire, and have been credited with saving the town. The town's cultural, foreign and cosmopolitan nature has continued since that time. In the 1960s, Cantin Flas promoted the area among his friends in the film industry. The city took on a bohemian quality in the 1960s and 1970s as counterculture hippies moved in. The growing attraction of the town and its colonial buildings created a vibrant real estate market, which until recently has not been affected by Mexico's economic ups and downs. Many of the old ruins of colonial houses have sold for more than a house in Mexico City. This is because many of San Miguel's buyers are foreign. Between 2006 and 2009, 34 projects constructed 405 housing units. The last peak of real estate sales came in 2007, with 180 units sold with a median price of $250,000, totaling $45 million. The city and nearby sanctuary were declared a World Heritage Site when UNESCO met in Quebec, Canada in July 2008. It was chosen both for its well-preserved Baroque colonial architecture and layout as well as its role in the Mexican War of Independence. The area, which has been inscribed, includes 64 blocks of the historic center and the sanctuary of Atotonilco with the title of Villa Protectorada, San Miguel el Grande y el Santuario de Jesus Nazareno de Atotonilco. Due to the world economic crisis, the housing market dropped in 2010, with prices falling between 20 and 40% compared to 2 years earlier. The Asociación de Profesionales Inmobiliarios, a real estate group, blames news articles of Mexico's problems with drug-related violence as the principal cause of keeping foreign buyers away. However, many Mexican buyers, mostly from large urban areas like Mexico City, Guadalajara, Querétaro, etc., have picked up the slack and are currently creating a new construction boom in the city. The historic center. At the entrance of the city are statues of Ignacio Allende, Juan Aldama, Miguel Hidalgo and Josefa Ortiz de Dominguez, with one of the Archangel Michael in the center, while the outlying areas of the town and municipality have changed over time. The historic center remains much as it was 250 years ago. The layout of the center of the city is mostly a straight grid, which was favored by the Spanish during colonial times. However, due to the terrain, many roads are not straight. There are no parking meters, no traffic signals and no fast food restaurants. These roads are lined with colonial-era homes and churches. With a few exceptions, the architecture is domestic rather than monumental, with well-tended courtyards and rich architectural details. The houses have solid walls against the sidewalks, painted in various colors, many with bougainvillea vines falling down the outside and the occasional iron-grated window. Many of the larger structures have large front doors which used to be used by horses and carriages. In the historic center, there are an estimated 2,000 doors, behind which there are at least 2,000 courtyards of various sizes. Many of these have been restored to the former colonial state, with facades of ochre, orange and yellow, windows and doors framed by handcrafted ironwork and made of hewn wood. The interior roofs are flat, of heavy mortar supported by large beams. Very few structures have atriums or front yards. Instead, open private spaces behind the main facade in courtyards. These courtyards are where the private gardens were, protected from dust, excess water and crime. The town is noted for its streetscapes with narrow cobblestone lanes that rise and fall over the hilly terrain, and occasionally defy colonial attempts to make a straight grid. It is still a small city, and at night, many wander the narrow streets with relative safety. The people on the streets are a mix of Mexicans, foreigners and indigenous. Its cultural and artistic reputation has brought many people from Mexico and abroad here to live. Several publications have named it one of the top 10 places to retire. The town has attracted famous people such as José Guadalupe Mujica, Pedro Vargas and Cantin Flas to have homes here. Additionally, indigenous peoples, mostly Otomas and Nahuas, can be seen on the streets, as they come to sell and buy from rural communities as well as to attend church. Since the 1920s, steps have been taken to preserve the historic center's charm. The first set of protections was put into place by the INAH when it was declared a national monument. This required that all restorations and new construction conform to the area's colonial architecture. To preserve the city's trademark colonial look, a civil society regulates the renovation and maintenance of the city, especially its historic center. This includes aspects such as traffic, garden spaces and even the kinds of social events that may be held. The town has also put much effort into preserving the cobblestone streets. The most recent designation is that of a World Heritage Site, along with the religious sanctuary in nearby Atotonilco, which also puts restrictions and protections into place. About half of the colonial buildings have been partially or fully converted into businesses such as stores, restaurants, galleries, workshops and hotels. Since there is no zoning, residential and commercial establishments are well mixed. Although it is small and rural, it has a wide variety of upscale and ethnic restaurants, specialty shops and art galleries. All around the historic center there are over 80 bars and cantinas as well as various nightclubs. To compete, many offer 2-for-1 drink specials. Others rely on gimmicks such as the frontier-themed bar on Mesones Street called El Gato, with swinging cantina doors like those seen on Old West movies. In September 2010, the first contemporary architectural structure arrived in the historic colonial center with the opening of Hotel Matilda. The hotel's 4 buildings have a modern design, with public areas decorated with the artworks of contemporary Latin artists, many of them very large pieces. Only the exterior street wall along Cal Aldama reflects the colonial style. Demographics. Despite being less than 5% of the total municipal population, foreign residents have considerable cultural and economic impact. Most foreign residents are retirees from the United States, Canada and Europe, attracted by the mild climate, cultural opportunities and low crime. It is only a 10-hour drive to the U.S. border. Many of the home buyers are from this segment of the population as well. Estimates of foreign residents range from 5,000 to 8,000, with at least half of these from the United States. The large foreign presence has established a number of institutions here. The most noted one is the Biblioteca Publica, which has the second largest English-language book collection in Mexico, located in the former convent of Santa Ana. It acts as the community center for foreigners. There is also a chapter of the Lions Club, The post of the American Legion and the Veterans of Foreign Wars is located there, a Mexico's only Audubon Society chapter. While the town and municipality have grown since the coming of foreigners in the 1940s, the highest rates of growth occurred between 1980 and 2000, rising from 77,624 to 110,692, or about 43%. However, since that time growth has slowed, and as of the 2005 census, the population stood at 139,297. Most of the drop has been due to the fall in birth rates. However, the overall population of the municipality is young. About 40% is under the age of 15, with those between 15 and 64 making up about 54% of the population. The majority of the municipality lives in the town of San Miguel proper, which has a population of 59,691. The next three largest towns are under 3,000 people: Los Rodriguez, Colonia San Luis Rey, and Corral de Piedras de Arriba. Most of the municipality's population is located in rural areas in communities that do not exceed 2,500 people. About 46% is considered to live in an urban environment in the city of San Miguel. Outside of the main town and in these smaller communities of the municipality's indigenous groups, mostly Otomi and Nahuas. The Otomi are the largest group, accounting for just under 38% of the municipal population. The Nahuas follow at about 20%. Other groups include the Mizahua, Huasteca, and Puebcha. However, according to the 2005 census, only 355 people speak an indigenous language. 96% of the population professes the Catholic faith, with the rest divided among Protestant and evangelical groups. The municipality is home to three institutions of higher education: Instituto Tecnológico SSC, a campus of the Universidad de León, and Universidad Tecnológica de San Miguel de Allende. The city also has bilingual schools with accordance to the American educational system. As of 2000, 17.5% of the population is considered to be illiterate, compared to 12.1% for the rest of the state.